Last weekend, Shakur Stevenson showed a plethora of skills against Jamel Herring to capture his second world title, but among all of the skills that were showcased, there's one skill in particular I want to break down that seemed to be his main key to victory in this fight, and is also a skill I believe should be utilized by more boxers. And that skill I'm referring to is the ability to apply pressure by stepping forward with your lead foot only while keeping the rest of your body back, as you could see Shakur Stevenson doing on the screen now. You might be thinking, well, what's so hard about that? You just step your lead foot forward. Well, to do this and to still have the focus to remain defensively responsible and to pose enough of a threat offensively to your opponent is where this doesn't become so easy. So let's take a look at how Shakur did this. As you can see, Shakur steps forward with only his lead foot while leaving his head and body back. He doesn't bring them forward with his foot. You can see by the lines, the green line is his lead foot and the red line is his head. The distance between the lines is actually quite large. We compare this to Herring, who is leaning forward more. His lines are much closer together. This is important because the distance between two fighters is the distance between their lead foot from one another. Shakur has essentially stepped into punching range, but because his head is back, he'll have an extra split second to react to an attack from Herring. So Herring has three basic options here. He could attack Shakur, he could risk staying there in punching range, or he could create distance out of punching range and reset. And as we can see, he opts to get out of the danger range here, and this is a big win for Shakur. This small step put the pressure on Herring and got him backing up. We see the same thing in these examples here. As Shakur steps forward, Jamel Herring will step back in response and try to reset. And we know that by stepping back constantly, by getting pressured back, you're basically going to be getting broken down little by little as the rounds go on, as you're going to be expending more energy stepping back. So what happens if Herring tries to attack him? As you see, Shakur steps forward and waits before bringing his body with him. As you see, he steps forward with the lead foot again, keeps his body back, but then waits to bring it forward. And right when Shakur is about to step forward again, or it looks like that, Herring throws a jab to try to time him coming in. And because Shakur kept his head and body back, he had a split second longer to see the jab coming and be able to dodge it. And then we see here he tries to counter the follow-up jab as well. Okay, so you could leave your head back, but what about the body? When you step forward, it's harder to leave the body back, so shouldn't that be a better target? So let's see as Shakur steps his lead foot forward, pressuring Jamel Herring back. Jamel Herring is going to try to attack the body here. So as you see, he steps forward, and then Jamel Herring goes with a jab. But as you can see, since this is a southpaw versus southpaw matchup, Shakur could just use the Philly shell to catch the jab to the body and return with a jab of his own. And we essentially see the same thing here as Shakur Stevenson steps his lead foot forward, keeping his head and body back, is able to draw the jab from Jamel Herring here, and is able to use the Philly shell to catch the jab to the body. So is essentially able to keep his head back to fade away from punches to the head, and is able to use the Philly shell to cover up his body and protect his body. The beautiful thing about this skill is that Shakur Stevenson not only used it to pressure Jamel Herring back, but he used it to set up his own offense as well. By drawing out punches he could see coming because his head is back, Shakur can bait out the punches and counter them. So as we see, Shakur Stevenson is going to step his lead foot forward, which doesn't draw a reaction, so he steps hard, which draws the counter hook. And as you see, the soft step forward didn't draw out a punch, so Shakur stepped his lead foot hard to draw a counter from Herring. And just like before, Shakur was able to react to the counter because his head was still back. So Shakur resets and Herring tries to follow up with a jab, and Shakur simultaneously steps his lead forward as he does this. So after dodging the punch, Shakur sneaks his lead foot forward while keeping his head back, bringing him into punching range without Herring noticing. And the large distance between Shakur's lead foot and his head makes him look like he's out of range, but he's really not. So while he's already in range, Shakur lands a beautiful left hand, which was all set up by that lead foot. In this situation, we're going to see the same thing happen again. Shakur is stepping that lead foot forward, pressuring Herring back, and is able to see the jab coming because he keeps his head back. And so Herring's jab falls short as Shakur pulls back from it. And even though Shakur really is in punching range because of his lead foot, by pulling back, he makes Herring think he really isn't in punching range. And so the jab is going to be your longest reaching punch. If you can't reach him with his jab, then Herring might think he's safe at this distance. So after missing the punch, you see Herring relaxes because he thinks he's at a safe distance. However, Shakur was in punching range this whole time because he stepped the lead foot forward. And what happens when you relax in punching range? Boom, boom, boom. Eats this beautiful 3-piece and a soda. And then one more example, late in the fight we see Shakur step the lead foot forward again, and Herring has not had an answer to the lead foot pressure. He hasn't been able to hit Shakur coming in, and he can't backpedal the whole fight. As the rounds go on and he gets broken down, hesitation kicks in when Herring sees Shakur step the lead foot forward because he doesn't know what to do. And because of the hesitation, Shakur is able to just unleash this onslaught on Herring as he has no answer for the lead foot. And this skill of pressuring with the lead foot is the same skill we've seen Canelo Alvarez display in all of his recent fights. So we see Canelo step his lead foot forward but keeps his head back, so he's in punching range, but he could still see punches coming his way if possible. So then we see Canelo bring his head forward to bait out the punch, and then he brings his head back. So when the punch actually comes, he's able to see it coming because he has that space, and he lands a beautiful left hook to the body as a counter. Now stop. I could already hear some of you typing furiously in the comments crying about me saying Shakur Stevenson learned this from Canelo. I'm not saying Shakur Stevenson learned this from Canelo or that he's copying Canelo. I'm simply drawing the comparison to show that this skill has been shown to have success. Shakur does it, Canelo does it. It is simply a technique anybody can do, and quite frankly, more boxers should be doing. I'm also not saying these two are the only boxers to ever do it, or that they're the first to do it. This is something you could try yourself as well, that's all. And lastly, here's an example of Erislandy Lara doing this technique to Canelo. As you can see, Lara is going to step his rear foot back to make him appear that he's further away. But however, the lead foot is still in punching range. Since Lara's head is back, and there's a big distance between his lead foot and his head, it makes him appear out of range. It makes Canelo think he's safe. However, he's not safe, and you see Lara lands a punch. Here's Shakur Stevenson tricking Jamel Herring into thinking he's at a safe distance. And here's Erislandy Lara tricking Canelo into thinking he's at a safe distance. And that's going to do it for this one. As always, thank you all for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe to the channel for more. If you want to support me directly, please consider supporting me on Patreon. So special thanks to my GOAT tier patrons, Jason Mahinan, Grant Gabriel, and Dmitry Drozdov. You guys keep the channel going. I'll see you guys all in the next one.